Hello everyone, this is another passenger train build video for you. This is the 1939 Chicago Northwestern 400. This is the first version of it that was fully streamlined. The Northwestern had a conventional train before 1939 that was steam powered, and it was either a 5 or a 6 car heavyweight set. It was pulled by an E2A Pacific, specially altered for that service. It was oil fired, had a larger tender, had a Mars light that shot up into the sky. Big, huge drivers. It was a really big Pacific. It was a 462. And then conventional cars that were all air conditioned and upgraded from general service. But Northwestern decided that they were not going to be able to compete with the Burlington route, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy, and the Milwaukee Road, Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Paul, and Pacific, that had recently introduced streamlined concepts on the same route. So in late 1938, early 1938, they contracted with a Pullman company and Electromotor Division to build an entirely new train. It was a 10-car train pulled by a set of diesel-electric locomotives. These were E3s, the early E units with the slant nose, and then a 10-car set. So, in N scale, you can get close to what the train looked like. It's pretty close to prototypical, and we'll talk about what is and what isn't correct as we do our roll by here on each piece of the train. So, coming into view will be the power here. These are stand-ins for E3s because nobody makes an E3, but an E3 looks very, very, very similar to an E6, and that's what this is. This is a lifelike E6. If I can get it in focus a little better, that's better. This is a lifelike E6 shell. The motive power were always AA units on this train. I can't remember, and I forgot to look it up before I started shooting this video. These are lifelike E6s standing in for E3s. I believe the number on the side of the unit is actually a number for an E6, so I apologize if I got that wrong. But we're using it as a stand-in for an E3. The biggest thing I did on this was, again, besides, like I said, it's a lifelike shell, but it's on a Kato mechanism. We've done this before. You've seen me if you've watched my videos. In here, I filed off the guides that slide down on the mechanisms of the lifelike shells. You can see the white one at the back. I put an extra spacer in there. But where I filed that down to, it rests on this little ridge on the side of the shell, of the mechanism, excuse me, and it works. Like I said, as long as you're not monkeying around with it and lifting it on and off the layout, it's not going to go anywhere. The other thing I did was at the front, the nose, the lifelike shell didn't have that second headlight drilled in here, but I did that. It was not a big deal, and I filled it in with crystal clear. All the other details were stock. I painted the trucks and put some weathering on it. So I really think that these are elegant looking locomotives, these early E units. So this is unit number 5005A. Again, it's numbered as an E6, but it's actually an E3. And I didn't want to ruin the paint by trying to change the number on it. So that's our lead unit. I filled in the pilot again. Put a coupler cover on it. The second unit is exactly the same. It's had the same treatment done to it. This one is number 5006A. The only thing that's different on this unit as opposed to the lead unit is that it has on microtrains, I think it's a 1015 in the nose to match up to the cars. So, first car on the train is the Baggage Tavern lunch car. This is not available. This is Des Plaines Hobbies kit. It's injection molded sides and roofs. The roof is and the underframe is American Limited core kit, but the sides are correct for this car. The other side, the window pattern is a little different, but I'm not going to take it off the tracks and show you. This is Model Flex paints, Chicago Northwestern Old Yellow and Chicago Northwestern Green. The trucks are Tamiya Olive Green, and the lettering is microscale. And so is the stripes actually on this car I painted rather than decaled. Maybe if I went back and did it again, I would put striped decals, but striped decals are a mixed bag. Sometimes they look good and sometimes they don't. So again, this is a prototypical car, not available unless you found an old Des Plaines Hobbies kit. It was a 10-car train, as I said. There was the Baggards Tavern lunch car. There were 4 coaches, then a diner, then 3 straight parlors, and then the parlor observation. So the first coach here, this is number 3411. These are stock Centralia car shops / Intermountain cars. The only thing I did to them was paint the trucks the Tamiya, again, olive green. Everything else is the same. The only thing minor error that they did, you can see the car number on this end of the car. It should also be on this end of the car on all these coaches. I wish they would have done that, but you know, it's still a pretty good car. The window pattern's correct. Everything else it's a prototypical car. So there's 4 coaches. I'm just going to do a roll by here. The second one is 3450. The third one is 3413, and the fourth one is 3431. You'll notice as they roll by the coaches, the vestibules are always together. That was to ease at station stops so that you could enter both cars if the platform was short. So they always ran their vestibules together on their coaches and their straight parlors. This is the diner. Again, this is not available stock. You can get close with the Centralia Car Shops diner, Eastern or Western diner. I forget which one looks more correct. But this one is not either of those. This is a Des Plaines Hobbies kit, again, mounted on an American Limited core kit. Injection molded sides that are correct for this train. So, Model Flex paints and microscale decals. The next 3 cars are stand-ins. These are more Centralia Car Shops coaches. They should be parlors. The windows pattern is very slightly different, but this is the closest thing you can get right now, and they're pretty good stand-ins. So they're numbered still as coaches. 3415, 3438, and 3447 are the next 3 cars. They are actually coaches, but they're standing in as straight parlors. So again, vestibules are together on them, and they do a nice representation of the straight parlors on the train. The last car on the train is the signature car of the train, and you can hear it bumping a little bit because it's a brass import. And the flanges on the wheels are a little large, and I'll tell you why I left the stock wheels on in just a moment. This is by a out-of-business company called Locomotive out of Japan, and Northwestern had 2 of these cars, 1 for each train set. The window pattern is prototypical. The bulb on the back of the roof here is not quite right, but it's pretty darn close. The only thing I did to this car is the green wasn't quite right to match the rest of the train, and it should, with this vintage of the train in 1939, it should have full skirting like the coaches did. I'm working on figuring out how to add skirts to this, but I did change the lettering and painted the roof. Coming from the factory, this had a black roof on it, which was not correct for this vintage, and it had yellow lettering on it, I believe, which was, again, that was a later version of the car. So I painted the green and added the silver microscale decals, which is correct for 1939. Another nice thing about this car is that the reason I left the factory wheels on it is You can see here a little bit if I can get my stand around. It's got a lighted drum head and Mars light on the back. The Mars light doesn't flash, but it's just constant. But in order to get the pickups, and I tried some other wheels and it just didn't quite work. So I left the factory wheels on here. The flanges are a little large and they bump once in a while on some Code 55 track, but it's pretty close. So that's the tail car. So that's the train. Again, it's a 10-car train, and it was prototypical mostly for 1939. Have a couple stand-ins, but it does a nice representation of the train. I'm pleased with it. So we'll do our normal, we'll do some run-bys here so you can see it in motion.